Hello and welcome. My name is JodieLynn Craven, founder of Abundance Consciousness, and this is my dear friend, Heather Marie.
Hi, I'm Heather Marie, founder of Soulgate. Welcome to Channel Squared, where we have extraordinary conversations about everyday life topics.
We sure do. And if you are a spiritual entrepreneur, a rising oracle, a high frequency leader, or anything in between, we have a special treat for you today. We have our special guest, Nathaly Granja. She helps guide, yay! She helps guide awakened entrepreneurs into their psychic gifts and their most abundant timeline. She spent the last 9 years as a hypnotist, multi-generational intuitive healer, featured on ABC, CBS, probably all the other B's and C's and S's within the industry, which is so exciting. Now she works with influential online leaders, helping them create powerful movements within their industry. So help me welcome Nathaly. Yay!
We are so happy.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here, especially because I just love you both as my friends and also at times mentors and also at times just souls. I just feel like I really know you guys through and through, and I just really appreciate being here.
Aww. Well, we are so happy that you're here because, like you said, we have all kind of worked together on, friend things and on spiritual things. And so I think it'll be really fun to have 3 channels in the room together to discuss and conversate. And boy, whoever is the fly on the wall today is in for a great show.
100%. Oh, yeah. Amazing. Well, why don't we start with some of the things that you do? I know when I first started in, spirituality on this journey, like words like multi-generational intuitive healer, that was a mouthful, oracle, like Reiki master, hypnotist, all of these things is like, whoa. So tell us, what do you do, Nathaly? What does that mean?
Well, I primarily work with entrepreneurs, awakened entrepreneurs. And, my background or my gift set is in being able to see at the very core of things in depth. So people will just be speaking and I'm like, okay, here's all the patterns. Here's the root of it. This is where it came from. And I can see, hear, feel, know that. I've been able to do that basically my whole life. But over the last 10 years, I've been honing in, more professionally. And then it's changed essentially, like phase to phase, because in the beginning as a Reiki master teacher and hypnotist, I would just work with anyone who walked through my door in DC. I worked at a brick and mortar where there was acupuncturists and massage therapists that gave me a really big understanding or large experience of the human condition and all these different types of blocks and things that I don't necessarily hone in on now, but it gave me a really good understanding of how to make the big cosmic conversations into really small, tangible, and profitable action steps, which is what I primarily do now. So working with entrepreneurs, either in the beginning phases where they're highly gifted, but they don't know how to translate it online because it feels like, how do I put all of this big, cosmic energy channel into something that's readable on Instagram? That is a challenge in itself. So I work with those people. And then I also work with the people who have already received some sort of level of success in their business. So multiple 6 and 7-figure entrepreneurs, but they built their business on a really old paradigm way of living. So all of their old patterns, all of their own trauma responses, all of their own trauma was essentially ingrained into the way they created business to repeat certain patterns. So I will help them deconstruct that, move through the patterns reprogramming, which is where we're going to use something like hypnosis and reprogramming work so that they can align to their most abundant timeline. So in any given session, it's channeled information, strategy, energy work, looking at parallel lifetimes, seeing what the highest timeline is, and then seeing what we need to do, both energetic and strategic, to actually move them into that space.
Wow. Wow. I have more questions. If you, Heather, are you good with me asking some questions?
Yeah, fire away.
Okay. I want to know, like, for the people that are listening right now, the tangible, what do you mean when you're saying the old paradigm versus the new paradigm? What are some things specifically that entrepreneurs get stuck in with the old paradigm versus what you teach on the new paradigm?
Such a great question. I would say okay, so when you asked the question, two things came to mind. The first one that came to mind was the pricing structure. So a lot of the old paradigm way is, well, I'm showing up for 90 minutes, so I'm getting paid for 90 minutes. I'm showing up for 60 minutes, I'm getting paid for 60 minutes. Versus looking at business as a new paradigm business as, okay, I'm actually bringing 10 years of experience, not just 90 minutes of my time. I'm actually bringing lifetimes of experience, not just 60 minutes of my time. So in that way, the pricing is going to be different. And a lot of times in intuitive work, people will be like, okay, 45 minutes for $45, or, something that's just like so unhealthy is the word that comes to mind. It's so unhealthy because as the channel or as a practitioner, we now have to take on 100 clients in order to make just like the bare minimum, to live. And all of these structures are based on, lack of worthiness, lack of translation of how our gifts are actually moving the needle in the 3D world. I think that sometimes in the intuitive work, people feel like they aren't allowed to charge what they would like to charge because they don't know how to translate it. They don't know how to say, I just went into your energetic field and I cut these cords and all these lifetimes and shifted what's in your DNA. They're like, I don't know how to say that in a way that makes it feel like I'm worth being paid X amount of thousands of dollars a month. So that's one of the things that comes up. The second one that I'm saying these two specifically because I feel like these are the ones that come top of mind. So this must be what the collective has to hear. The second one is saving. So in an old paradigm way of business, especially as intuitives and healers, we likely have a lifetime of saving other people because we know how to do that. We know how to rescue. Because we can see beyond, we're like, oh, but if you just do this, oh, but if you just do that. And we bring that into our businesses where we feel like we need to be responsible for other people's results because they're paying us all of this money. And it's actually like, no, there is such thing as a divine time. There's such things as sacred timing. I like to tell people, sometimes I get to witness on the timeline the biggest, most like luxurious results. And sometimes I'm witnessing with my client the deconstruction of their timeline and the falling, the tower moment. And as a practitioner, we're like, oh my gosh, they're paying me for a result. I have to give them a result. And it's like, no, that's actually part of what they came to you for, is a safe space to deconstruct. So the result is the space that you create, not these constant desires for tangible results. It's like, it's a balance between both. And I think that as intuitives, we have to give ourselves permission to be like, they just came here for the message, and what they do with that is their responsibility. So those are like two of the ones that came to mind.
It's so interesting that you say this because, I have found even in my own practice with my clients that, I see this deconstruction, and even myself, I've been like, oh gosh, here we go. Eek, Ike, and I'm kind of like, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. The sooner it all falls apart, the sooner they can build new. So let's just rip off the Band-Aid and keep moving forward. Yeah.
Yep, totally.
Holy, when I was thinking when you were saying, 60 minutes and X number of dollars, what came to mind immediately is as a channel with doing the energetic work, it's not like oh, on the 1 hour mark, I open up and I do my job. And then once the Zoom window closes, I'm done. There's so much, whether I'm conscious of it or not. So sometimes I'm unconscious of it. But the before work of feeling into them and whatever's coming through. And then while you're in it, like feeling, for me anyway, with some people, it's like feeling like you're holding the world for them in this giant container, and then it closes, but the container of them, their energy hasn't closed with it, and you have to close that and reprotect yourself and do all of these things to like shut yourself off from that person. And I know Heather talks about this all the time. When you work with Heather, you're in her container and it's open to you the like 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is that you're working with her. That is priceless, but we often don't put a price on it.
Right.
Totally. I think too, what you said, like the preparation work, that's something I talk about with my clients as well, is that like all of the work that we have to do for ourselves, the deconditioning, the reprogramming, the seeing our own stories, all of that is value added to the containers that we hold. And just marking ourselves as like, here, you're paying for these 2 calls is inaccurate. You're paying for the mastery and the container, that huge container that we tend to hold, because we're picking up on information in between calls. You have access to the channel in between calls for some containers. So yeah, I think that's something that it hasn't been done before like that, right? Like there isn't a legacy of intuitives that work that way. There's a legacy of lawyers that work that way, but not for new paradigm leaders. And that's where it can feel like, well, there's no evidence of that. So how do I know it's going to work for me? And that's where the work is.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, you touch on something that's really key, and that is that it's a new thing, right? This has never been done historically. So, when we run into people who are stepping into this great time, when they're working with any one of us or with even their clients, it's a melting pot of all of this, many lifetimes of information, all of the work that each one of us has done individually to firmly seat ourselves in a place to assist others, right? And so, and this has never been done before, to hold this space so open for individuals to truly move into their divine purpose, their plan, their experience, and then bring everybody up too, right? This has never happened before. This ascension has never happened before. It's exciting. Just gets me all tingly inside. I'm all,
I mean, it's so true. All of these things. And I find within my own practice, when I'm teaching people about their money mindset, their abundance consciousness, when we're up against creating something new, there's a lot of blocks that are there because, well, who do you follow? If you're forging a new path on how you're doing business and what feels good for you, there is no one to follow. You're creating a whole new path. And that's a little daunting and terrifying. And, you have no one to like check with unless you're working with someone like you, Nathaly, that helps them on the business side of things.
Yeah. Too, like what you're saying is so true. It's like, well, who do I follow? Where's the template for this? And it's like, well, there is no template. You're the template. You're the one bringing it through. And I'm so hopeful and excited at the idea that there's so many people who are now waking up and realizing like, oh my gosh, there's other people like me. Maybe I'm not looking at a certain like structure of how to do it, but there's at least peers among me who are also in that same space.
Yeah.
Changing the world.
Breath. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, amazing.
So when you use the term oracle a lot, and I have some questions around the terminology oracle, like, Nathaly, what is an oracle?
I love this question because I was just redefining it not too long ago for myself. When I think of an oracle, I think of someone who is connected to their body, because I believe the body is the oracle channel. And other people can call it like clairs. Oh, I'm clairsentient, I'm clair this, I'm clair that. But I feel like that's not all encompassing. I think when I hear the word oracle or channel, it's very much reminding me of the whole picture. When I think of an oracle, I think of someone who is divinely connected to the, or I should say, someone who is divinely dedicated to the healing and clarity of their body, the oracle channel. So it's someone who can use their body as the system to receive information. And for some people, it's art. For some people, it's technology. For others, it's new paradigm business codes. For others, it is ET information. We all are channeling something different, some very similar, but it's the act of using your body to tune into something greater than you.
That's amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's truly the embodiment of the intuitive and the divine being that you are. So I think that that's really, that's really amazing. That's a great description of oracle. So with this description of oracle,
and I
Nathaly
want
looks
to
like she's
add
having
something to that as well, because this is the part that I was rethinking about restructuring the last couple of weeks. And that is, when I used to think of an oracle, I would think of the Oracle of Delphi. So I would think of like a cave with a statue, or like a throne, and the oracle is sitting there, and people are traveling from, close and far, and dropping off their money and coming into the temple and asking the channel. That was very much the way I would connect to the visual and the energy of an oracle. And in one of my own personal healings a couple of months ago, I saw like the archetype of Athena come through, and she destroyed this like oracle chamber that I had created and that I was always tapping into. And like the statues and the pillars and everything was just crumbled to the ground. And she was saying, you choose, you are not chosen. And what that meant for me was, we are not commodities. We are not waiting for people to come and be like, oh, let me work with you. We as oracles and as channels get to decide who we want to work with. And so she like destroyed the cave, and she like, we were hand in hand and we walked out, and she was like, now you choose. And it was no longer waiting to be chosen, which I think is also part of the energetic of being an intuitive and being like, oh, someone wants to work with me. And it's like, actually, you get to decide like where, like that's your power as well. And it's not just this place of, sometimes I would, in the last couple of months, which is why I think this healing came through, is that I would connect to this lifetime of being some sort of like alchemist or mystic or healer who was doing all of the work in the dark and working like for the palace. And we got no recognition. We got no like name on the wall, and no party, nothing to celebrate us. It was like, oh, all of this is happening because you're coming to us as the intuitives and the oracles and the alchemists, but it's all happening in the dark. It's all happening behind the scenes. And I kept tapping into this lifetime, and I was like, yeah, I'm feeling bitter. I'm feeling like, why does this need to be so in a corner? And so I think that healing came through to be like, you're no longer waiting around to be chosen. Like, you get to choose the trajectory. You get to choose who you want to work with. And so that's also part of like what it means to be a new paradigm oracle.
I love that. Holy cow. I mean, just the visuals that I was getting when you were talking about like busting this paradigm that you had of this oracle was just like in a cave, like you mentioned, but also chained there, like forced to work because somebody has showed up and somebody needs you. And it also taps into that belief system that you were just talking about earlier about like, I have to save the people. Well, you're stationed there, you're chained there to save the people. And it's no longer about that. It's in my opinion, I think it's about the people deciding that they want to be saved. And this person can show me a direction, not save me, show me a direction. And I'm going to choose to walk beside them. I'm going to choose to walk, in this direction because I feel led here. That's incredibly beautiful. And I love that you, in the middle of your practice, even though you're super successful and you're doing all these amazing things, featured on ABC and CBS and all these different places, you still had the courage to redefine what work looks like for you and what you do really means to you and for you. That's extraordinary, Nathaly.
Thank you.
I'm just really excited
all
about
of those things.
Yeah. And I think that that's part too of like what a new paradigm business is like, I don't just have it all figured out. I'm continuously redefining. I'm continuously checking in and being like, oh, wow, that's a limitation, or that was a contraction. And I oftentimes I'm mirrored that with my own clients. And I'm like, oh my God, I do the same thing. Oh, wow. And then you kind of learn and expand from that. So I think that part of this work is continuously redefining what it all looks like for you and experimenting and not being afraid to be both a leader and someone who is learning all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the key, right? Is like, you're always the student, always. The moment you stop learning, everything stops. You stop that trajectory, you stop that momentum. Like, you always have to be learning. This is something that, I have always felt very called and compelled to, is the continual learning. I may be able to channel the divine and receive information in this way, but this monkey meat suit is still here in the humanity, right? And putting all of those pieces together in a beautiful way to understand and learn from another. And, we all came here to experience this together, right? So if we, teach one another, we support one another, and we choose our experience, then the learning is a continual cycle. You can receive and develop, and this goes back to the the training and all of the behind the scenes work that comes in with working with someone like us, right? All of the education and the experience that we have developed just in this lifetime. I don't know about you, Nathaly, but I have spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy to develop the skill set, right? And so many people who are unaware of all of that, they think, oh my gosh, she's so expensive. But it's like, you wouldn't want a surgeon working on you that didn't go through the schooling, learn the techniques, master the craft, then operate on you, right? So why would you want a healer or a channel or a guide that hasn't done the work?
Oh yeah. I know for a fact that the three of us have spent individually over $20,000 in our own mastery of all of it.
That's only over the last couple of years, right, Nathaly?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
In the last year.
That was last year, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Last year.
That was last year. That's so funny. Exactly. I mean, that's the thing is it's just, there's so much more to the fact that we have a gift, right? Everybody looks at this, I shouldn't say this, not everybody. Some people may look at it like, this is a gift. This was something that was given to you by God, and therefore it should be free. But it's not, right? It's not, because so much goes into providing this for you to create this safe, beautiful place just for you, cultivated just for you.
Yeah.
And no space is the same between your space and their space. This is your space. This is their space. And I hold all of this just for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's truly magical. I mean, the service that you provide, Nathaly, is truly magical.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I can say the same for both of you personally. I know that 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think,
So, go ahead, Jodie.
Heather. I was just going to
No,
say,
go
I
ahead.
think that line of thinking that you were bringing up is really all connected to that old paradigm. And I think it's really beautiful, Nathaly, that you are teaching this new paradigm, even though you don't know all of the details on what it's going to look like. And you don't have to. It's about allowing, like, having that beacon of hope that others can choose what that's going to look like. Just being that, that beacon of light for people, saying you can choose, you get to, this is your life. And you get to make up all of the things. That's phenomenal and exactly what's needed at this time of ascension, for sure.
So I want to ask you, Nathaly, what do you, I'm going to pick your connection channeling brain here for a moment. When you look at the landscape, okay, the experience that we're having worldwide, okay, I don't want you to just limit it to the United States. I want you to look at it worldwide. When you are looking into the landscape of what we are experiencing in this current time and space continuum, what do you see? Like, how do you see this evolving?
I've had this reoccurring dream over the last year and a half of, like, kind of looking at the globe, except it wasn't a globe. It was more like flat, but not in a flat earth way. More like more like you're looking at a map, okay? And the map. And I've seen on certain continents, like lights. Like I see like these lights pop up, almost like light grids. And so when you asked me the question, I wanted to, I've thought about this question many times and have asked various forms of this question. So I wanted to have a clear answer from today, not just from my own consciousness. And when I tuned in just now, I saw, like, a lot of chaos, a lot of destruction. But then I also saw that the lights on the map again were really strong. I perceived, yes, there's destruction. There's also so much awakening happening and so much ascension happening, so much evolution happening just as much. And my conscious mind, I noticed, wanted to be like, oh, it's chaos and destruction. But I'm like, actually, there's a lot of love and joy finding people, and a lot of healing finding people, that I almost think outweighs some of the chaos. I feel the other thing that came up was alien disclosure. I feel like that's going to be a really big part of the timeline that we're on, because it will redefine and reshape some of the belief systems around organized religion, which will also bring people back into ascension even more. And then for others, it'll kind of plummet and there's, chaos happening there. But that's like the first thing that comes to my space when I'm connecting with the question today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a conversation that Jodie and I have had on several occasions, and we've channeled on several occasions about, is it going to get worse? Is there going to be more? And we have definitely come to the answer of yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big show. And something that I always reiterate when we're going through this, like that not destruction, but like the falling of certain systems, or the falling of certain belief systems, whether it's actual like structures or not, is needed for the creation of new. So that's a very exciting. I was having this conversation with somebody else like last week, and I'm like, it's exciting because you knew before you came here that this is what was going to happen. And like, I know what my role is in this ascension time. Can't speak. I know what my role is, and I'm sure that you guys know exactly what your roles are. But for somebody that doesn't know, I think it's kind of exciting of, ooh, I wonder what my role, because there's a reason you're here right now. It's not by chance. It's meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like, everyone who's here right now, they not only did they have to choose to come, right? They chose to come, but also they had to play their cards right to be qualified to come here in this time.
Yeah, I also think that what can be challenging on a small scale is that part of the roles that people have chosen is to not ascend. And when you have those individuals in your family, in your friendships, in your surrounding, like nearby kind of like community, let's say, that on a small scale, I think is where it can feel really challenging, because as channels, we're like, yeah, of course, like it's gonna get worse, it'll get better. Actually, things are getting better, blah, blah, blah. But day to day, where I have a lot of empathy and where I feel into where it can feel kind of like oh my God, is this ever going to end? Is in those relationships with like parents, siblings, children, where it feels like, oh shit, they're spiraling, they're in the chaos, they're in the programming, and you don't see an evolution, or you don't see a momentum. That one I feel is kind of more difficult.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have seen that across the board between clients, family members, friends. And I think that it can be painful to have some relationships fall away. And it can also be exhilarating for the new relationships that are coming to fruition. And there's two ways that you can look at it. You can look at it as a complete and total loss, or you can look at it as the jumping off point to something new and wonderful. And ultimately, you get to choose how you interpret that.
Yeah.
Totally. I tend to try to go the jumping off to a new and better route at any time that I possibly can. But, it is sometimes those changes, and as people move in and out of our life in this way, it can be confronting.
Yeah, totally. And I think that that's where the people who are the souls who are ascending, that's where their work is. It's in the confronting aspect. It's in what they're seeing, what they have to choose anyway. That's the work. Like being like, okay, this is going to be a leap off point for me. That's so much easier said than done. I feel like choosing that in itself is like switching you on another timeline completely.
Agreed.
I find that it's, I see a lot of people getting attached and like really grieving that other people are stuck.
Yeah.
And I think that that's hard. It's hard to watch when it's somebody that you love or that you care about. And if going back to this old paradigm that we were talking about, if you're stuck in that savior, I have to save them, I'm responsible to save them. Like you're going to end up going down with the ship. Like you can only do what you can do. And it's everybody's responsibility to choose. It's my responsibility to choose that I'm going to ascend, that I'm going to take on this mission, that I am saying yes. I remember, a couple of weeks after I went through ectopic surgery, and almost died. I was so depressed and like just not myself whatsoever. And I just wanted to quit everything. I was like, I just want to be a mom. That's all I want to do. And I don't care about anything. And I was like, screw the mission. I don't want it. None of it. And I remember my higher self dropping in clearer than ever before. And she was going to press the like red button. Like, if you're going to quit, I'm going to go. Like, I'm not watching this again. Like, you have to choose that you're going to accept what you came for in this life, that you're not going to waste another one. That was the clear message for me. And it was hard because I was so stuck there, but nobody could save me. I had to choose to move forward at that point.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got deep there.
Hopefully everybody's still with us.
Yeah, that's right. I would love to talk about the most abundant timeline, Nathaly. I remember, I think it was 2019 going into 2020, you did this beautiful meditation that I came to.
Right.
And Heather came to, and there's a bunch of people that we knew that had come to this event, and you walked us through our most abundant timeline and a meditation of it. And it was so beautiful. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about as well, because everyone has a different timeline. And the most abundant timeline cannot be created from our programming. It has to be created from pure desire, which is found in the oracle body, right? So at the very core of your oracle body is desire, it's purpose, it's pleasure. But we have all of this programming stuff both in the mind, or really the four bodies. And that's where all the programming is. And so when I work with people in either early on in their business or in their 6 and 7 figure business, and I say, well, what does that next level look like? What would you really desire? And I'll get like these really generic answers. And this is really where the most abundant timeline was kind of birthed, because I was realizing that people would be giving answers based on the level of consciousness and belief system of where they were. And that was actually not at all what they would desire. So for example, I remember one of my clients being like, I would love to have a personal chef and a private personal trainer. And I want to get a new car, and I'd like to redo the kitchen, and I want to pay for my daughter's wedding. And she was just listing off all of these things. And I'd said, okay, great. What number would you need to make per month to easily make that happen? And she was like, 10K. And I was like, no, like 10K is not going to match that vision, but her conscious mind could get behind 10K, because before she went into the healing industry, or in the, like, let's say online spiritual industry, she was working as a nurse. And so she made really close to 10K a month. And that was something that her mind could get behind. Her mind could get behind it because everyone she knew was also making 10K months. But her desire, her pure desire, was a vision that required another level of income. But again, the programming is like, oh, 20, 30K months, no way. How is that possible? How can I do it? So that's the very beginning of the most abundant timeline, is being really clear and honest with what your desire is outside of your conditioning. And then when you can tune into the frequency of what that timeline looks like, you're given the codes. I call it like everyone has a different access point. So sometimes people will come to me and say, oh, I want to do this. And they think, okay, I just need to restructure my business and do this and this and this. But really, the thing that gets them there is a specific medicine. Everyone has their own medicine. For some people, it's, dropping into, okay, I can make more money. For others, it's getting out of the spiritual ego, which is, well, I'm a channel, so it should just come to me. And it's like, well, no, we also live in the 3D. So how do we need to take practical steps to get there? Right. So everyone has their own medicine. Sometimes it's ancestral, early childhood. Sometimes it has to do with worthiness. Sometimes it has to do with being seen, whatever it is. Once we can tune into the frequency and understand what the medicine is, we can start to move it along the way. And I never just do this energetically. It's also done practically. So practically meaning, okay, let's refine your message. What are the key messages? What's the type of content we need to create specifically for your energy? It doesn't have to be like anyone else. And that's where their business strategy is also influenced by, because yes, there are things that work in like the online space, but it's not necessarily what's in our highest excitement. It's not necessarily what turns us on. So it's about finding that middle point and understanding like, no, we can't become really successful doing our own strategy, but we can't abandon some of the 3D principles of being seen. I like to give the visual of, imagine like you're on a cobblestone road. I think of like old Europe, and there's a bakery and there's like a flower shop. You're a shop, and you have to make sure all of the lights are on. And all of the lights being on might mean like when we bake the bread, we can smell the aroma for a block away. We put a sign outside, we put the tables, we open the windows, make sure light comes in. All of these little steps, there are those little steps in the 3D space, which is like, okay, what's your brand? Okay, what are the offers? Okay, maybe we need to work through some of this mindset stuff. Like those are the ways that we prepare and turn on the lights of our business. It can't just be, oh, I have this bakery and I'm just going to really manifest for it to work. That's not, you have to do some of the work as well to get to that point. So that's the most abundant timeline. It's tuning into that frequency and understanding what our own strategy is for that.
Well, I know I can speak from experience of, working with Nathaly on my most abundant timeline. We've done some of this work together. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is how, even though I had worked with others in developing what it is that I was trying to say, we were able to go back to the nuts and bolts, the foundational stuff of what are you really trying to say? And it was so much deeper of an exploration than this surface, I'm going to call it surface spirituality, right? There's this, and we all know it, right? Anybody who works in this industry knows that surface spirituality, right? The language, the verbiage that's used, it's all very woo, alien-esque, metaphysical, get out my crystal ball. Okay. But the truth is that, my messaging is clarity, right? I can get you clear. And in all of the communication that I was putting out, lack of clarity. It wasn't clear. Like, what do you do, Heather? Let's get to the bottom of what it is that you do, who it is that you want to work with, and how you can articulate that so that those who are seeking you will find you. Yeah. And I think that is such an important aspect of hanging your sign, right? That's the open sign. And so I think that it's really amazing the techniques that you use, Nathaly, to get people on this very granular level to become clear on who they are, what they want, and now how are we going to bring that into the experience? It's really amazing.
Oh, thank you. And yes, I think this is where some of like the spiritual ego can come in, because I will have people that are like, oh, I've hired other coaches, I've worked with other people, I've done the business thing. And it's like, I need you to just trust me and this process, because I might ask you the same exact question you've been asked before, but the journey we're going to take to find that answer is going to be much more in depth and on a soul level than it is just like, what am I going to say to like sell? We're going to get the soul information and make it into something that is like, oh shit, like that's something I'd like to buy. And I think that sometimes in this industry, because anyone can just call themselves a psychic intuitive channel, a shaman, a this, that, they skip the soul journey part and just want to fit everyone into a template. And then we feel like our soul is dying inside because that's not accurate to us. And there is a space for all of us to be seen and shown, you know, in the online space, in the in-person space, whatever.
Yeah. Something else that really rings like loud and clear when you're talking, Nathaly, is the difference in vibration between the two. The difference, like knowing from a soul level your innermost desires and then connecting with that vibration, and from that vibration creating your message, turning the sign on, opening the windows, you know, baking the bread. Everything is impacted so drastically when you're coming from that space versus potentially coming from this old paradigm of, I just need a message, I just need social media copy, I just need, you know, an offer that's XYZ or B or whatever. It has to be like this because someone told me, coming from a place of, I need to do this to make money. Completely different vibration. And it makes sense how and why you utilize this most abundant timeline, and how you've had, you know, entrepreneurs go from, I don't know if it was 0 to 50K months, but like you've had entrepreneurs hit 50K months, 100K months, like do incredible things. It makes sense. Yeah.
Well, you know, and I think that this is the cool thing about this is that this is the connection of the spiritual, the embodiment of the business, right? The melding of the magic and the physical, because it really is magic, right? And we're all capable of accessing the magic, utilizing the magic, connecting with the magic, you know, moving the magic. But you have to be able to harness the magic and put it into practical application. And I think that that is one of the really special things about working with you, is you are able to bring the magic and teach people how to utilize it to reach that most abundant timeline. It's really awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very gifted, Nathaly. We're very excited to not only have you on our show, but be friends with you.
Yay. Likewise, ladies.
Is there anything that you see coming up right now, whether it's like old paradigm stuff or struggling to hop to new paradigm, but something that is like for the times right now, whether it's the last 2 years and how things have changed, or 2021 or 2022? Is there anything specific that keeps coming up for a lot of entrepreneurs that you're working with?
Yes. So when you originally asked the question, before I heard you say entrepreneurs, there was one answer. And then for entrepreneurs, there's another answer. So I'll share both quickly. In general, I think for the world, the destruction of belief systems, especially around people's faith, I think is really a big deal, as I mentioned earlier. So I think that people are looking, like they're looking for something greater. And with the way technology is, and with the way that social media is, anyone and everyone can become a guru. And so on one of the platforms that I'm on, TikTok, I've noticed there's so many like pop astrology, pop manifestation, pop everything. And it is actually incredibly damaging. And I think the reason they're doing so well is because there's a gap. There's a space in which people are desiring these like codes of living and these universal laws. But when they go online, it's naturally immediately filled with this unembodied, ungrounded individuals and content that is more damaging than it is helpful. So I would say that there's going to be an increase in that altogether, which I think is a really good prompt for entrepreneurs or individuals who are grounded, who are embodied, to create content to fill that gap. And I think that both in a strategic place, I think you can do really well in that. And also on a soul level, you're sharing your gifts. I think people are hungry for it. So maybe that's like answering both. But I think for entrepreneurs, again, something that's really prevalent for multiple 6 and 7 figures, and I think that this can be helpful for anyone, regardless of where they are in their business, is that a lot of these multiple 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs will come to me in a tower moment. They're collapsing. Everything is like, oh my gosh, I built my entire business on a foundation that doesn't work anymore. So regardless of where you are in your business, create and scale your business from foundations of how you actually want to spend your life. So one of the questions I ask people in the very beginning of like this business foundations is, how do you want to spend your day? And then create offers around that. Not, well, I've got to create offers. This is how people are going to pay me. This is the only thing people are going to pay me for. It's all about actually grounding into what's best for you is best for your clients. So there's that.
Beautiful.
Amazing. So I want to, we have a couple of questions from those viewers that are with us live today. Thank you everybody for joining in, and we're so happy that you're here. So one of the questions that we have is, do you see online information dying off, like Facebook, social, that type of thing? Like, do you see this dying off? What do you see for that?
No, I don't. And that kind of goes with what I was saying around, like, there's actually this gap because people's like real life belief systems are dying down. Let's say like certain religious beliefs, or even politically, it's gone so extreme on both ends that people are like, well, what do I believe? So there's this space to be like, here's how to tune into what's true for you. Here's how to tune in from this place of like critical thinking and not like following parties or not following these polarities. So I do think that the online space is going to increase. I think that within the online space, it evolves, right? So now video is a really big thing, like Reels and TikTok, smaller videos, which can feel, I know for some people who are really ancient souls, to be like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I going to do this dance and then put, my codes out there? So
mine, just to interrupt you, is like, why do people like want to see like what I do? I'm kind of boring. I don't really have any cool stuff that I do.
But you're not, but like the people, like you're not boring to other people though, right? So other people are like abundance consciousness. Like, how does someone who believes in abundance consciousness, like how does that person live their life? So it is the little things that people are interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Nathaly, you know how like resistant I am to this social media thing. I mean, she is talking right to me, guys, as you all know. Any of you that follow me on social media are probably like, wah, wah, Heather's so boring. But, it's really just this, why do I have to do this? Like, it's just so, seems so weird and foreign.
I know, but it's a global platform. Think about it as like getting on a soapbox in front of the world. Like, this is one of the times where we get to access. I work with clients on every continent except Antarctica. So, the fact that we can do that, the fact that we can spread that message from a video or from a post, that's magical, right? Like, if you would have told our ancestors 1,000 years ago, like, there's this place where you can speak to someone on the other side of the world, they'd be like, what nonsense is this, right? So that is magic. It's just, it's for free. It's just the way that we relate to it. It's our stories and conditioning to it. We get to decide how we show up on it, but I think it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, so good. God, thank you for that like coaching moment, because that you completely changed the way that it's framed out in my mind just in that one conversation. That's so awesome.
Me too. Yeah.
Do we have time for one more question? We're kind of
Yeah.
running a little bit over. Yeah? You got another minute, Nathaly?
Mm-hmm.
And her name's pronounced Nathaly, everybody. Even though it's not spelled that way, it is actually Nathaly.
Yeah.
So Jessica has a question of how do we niche and let our heart find joy and authenticity in our work continuously? You may need to feel into that one.
Okay, so the real question there is, how do I niche without losing myself, without like losing the all-encompassing version that is you? So this is what I tell people, is that when you're niching down, aka like creating like that one sentence like value proposition that you put in your bio, it isn't going to have all that you are. Like it just isn't going to be describing everything that is you. So this is what I call finding the golden thread. And the golden thread is what connects all parts of you in this message. For example, I feel personally that my title as an oracle surpasses Reiki master, shamanic, this, and crystal healer and hypnotist. Oracle as the title feels like what I'm doing, who I am. I don't need to list all of these different certifications or parts of myself. And the same way that what I do is I connect people to their most abundant timeline through shadow reprogramming and new paradigm business. You see how I put it in 3 key messages there. I don't have to describe the ins and outs. Of course, on this episode, if you ask me, I'm going to tell you all the different ins and outs, but it's not necessary when you're selling online, right? And I think that this is where it's really hard, because everyone wants to include all parts of themselves. And I think it's just a matter of finding the golden thread that ties it all together. In the end, I say I connect people to their most abundant timeline. Sometimes that's a financial month. Sometimes that is a new lifestyle based on recreating new patterns. And it's not financial at all. Sometimes it's someone who's a 7-figure business, and I'm not giving them business strategy. I'm just helping them redevelop their business in a way that is a new paradigm for them. So the most abundant timeline looks different person to person, right? But again, the most abundant timeline is a really great golden thread for what I do. So when people are reaching down, it feels like, oh my God, I'm losing myself. I'm losing parts of myself. But really, it gets to be a process of just understanding, what is it that I really do? And not all these little bits and pieces. What is it that I'm really doing consistently with every single one of my clients or with whoever? So that's
perfectly
it.
said.
Yep.
Perfectly said.
Love it.
So we are out of time. Nathaly, how do people find you so that they can hire you to help them reach their most abundant timeline, get a hold of the Granja Vortex method? Like, tell us everything on how to get you in our back pocket.
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram. That is the best place to hang out with me, Nathaly Granja _ I have a podcast, The Ascension Vortex, which is a library of really awesome podcasts. I have JodieLynn on there. I have Heather interviewed, but not posted yet. So you will see just a really great library, just of free content, if that's what you want to just go through first. I have a free masterclass on my Instagram as well. But Instagram is typically where you're going to see like daily stories, activations, posts and things like that.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Amazing.
beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with us today, Nathaly. Just being in your energy, in your presence, you're just so magical. I can't say it enough. Even just these tiny little micro shifts in the way that you see the world is absolutely incredible, beautiful, and impactful. And we're just so grateful that you spent your time with us today, and hopefully we'll get to spend some more time with you soon.
Thank you. I was feeling the same. I was like, wow, I can feel my vibration like getting higher and higher as I was speaking with you guys. And at first my ego was like, oh God, like, wait, wait a minute. Why am I not already that high? And then I was like, as we progressed, I was like, oh, this is really nice. I love being in their space together.
Yeah.
It's been a while. So
well, I feel
thank
expanded too. Yes. Thank you for that.
Likewise.
And
yeah.
it's all around love. Amazing. Well, thank you everybody who tuned in today. Make sure that you hit that like button. It's just down at the bottom there. You just click it, just one time, just click it. Everybody do it with me right now. Click it. Yeah. Amazing. Share this video, share our message, and tune in next week when we are back for some amazing things. I think we're talking about what is our topic next week? How to
Go ahead.
How to find peace within the chaos. Boom. That's next week's topic. So have a wonderful week, everyone. Again, thank you, Nathaly, and we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.